This is the breaking news. Former Vice President Mike Pence testifying in Jack Smith's criminal probe into the January 6th insurrection and related coup plots. And this occurred today. And while it began in the morning, and I'll go through the timeline with you, we only just learned about it as a confirmed breaking news story within the last hour. Why does this matter? Well, you can imagine several reasons. I'm going to walk through the facts with you. It is, first and foremost, a major sign of where the probe is at as it accelerates up the chain of command. It is also a decisive victory for the aforementioned special counsel appointed by Attorney General Garland, Jack Smith. Smith putting Pence under oath about January 6th for the first time today, as best we know it. And that means this special counsel has succeeded where other investigators ran into delays or outright walls. We all remember the now completed congressional investigation, the January 6th committee. It heard with great effect from Pence's aides under oath and his legal advisor, but never from the former vice president himself. So there's the first big headline here. By all public accounts, and we will update this if we learn of some other secret proceeding, but based on what we know right now tonight, this is the first time former Vice President Pence has been pressed under oath about January 6th and the insurrection. And here is why this witness matters more than anyone. I was just discussing this in our breaking coverage with my colleague Nicole Wallace. There are several factual ways that Mike Pence's testimony matters more than anyone, including former President Trump, who sits at the center of and the beneficiary of the failed coup plot. We have evidence that shows Pence has firsthand key information that either few or in some cases no other people have. Let me repeat that because I know there's a lot of talk and hyperbole, but I'm saying that as a reported piece of information we have from covering all this. Mike Pence, from the documents and from the transcripts that the January 6th committee provided, and from a lot of other indications that we have, has access to information that few or no other people have. It's the kind of information that the DOJ wants because it could inform quite decisively whether other people are indicted or not in this coup probe. So that right there is a lot. Now, when I refer to that information, I mentioned that it's reportable. We got this breaking news story here within the last hour, so we've just put together a couple of those examples for you. I'm just going to walk them through with you. So we'll live through the breaking news together. When I talk about information that Pence knows, that includes, one, Trump's demands to carry out a coup even before the January 6th certification and that day's rally and that clash even occurred, the early stuff. Two, Trump's effort to steal the election at the state level, something that has been caught on tape. What does Mike Pence know about that from inside the Oval Office? Then three, at the federal level, what does Pence know about Donald Trump pushing to execute on that Navarro-Eastman plan to try to jam Congress with fraudulent elector slates and other basically false, misleading, or potentially illegal government submissions, which would be used for number four? What does Pence know about whether Trump actually issued unlawful orders for Pence to claim powers he did not have to stage a coup and overturn the election on January 6th? And underneath that rubric that I'm calling just number four on this partial list, of course, there is a big difference between a president musing about something or asking someone something. I mean, a president all the time could ask the Pentagon or lawyers, can we do this? Could we do that? Should we do this? That's the decision-making process. Nothing criminal about that. That's very different from knowing something is illegal or being warned against it and then issuing an unlawful order. Pence may know better than anyone because he would be the only person that Trump was trying to get to do that thing on January 6th, to steal the race through the certification process. He knows whether this was just discussed, which, again, as I say, may be very unethical if you care about democracy, but not a crime. You can discuss things in government, or whether it was actually an unlawful order. We don't know everything that Jack Smith asked today, but we can surmise that would be an area of interest. And finally, number five, most ominously, Pence can speak to whether anyone in the White House, anyone, could be the president, could be others, evinced actual knowledge about advanced plans before January 6th to storm the Capitol or use violence. Because right now the Proud Boys are on trial for this. Other people are going to jail for years for this, the sedition. It's convicted. It's a convicted sedition. Former Fox anchor Tucker Carlson, who's been in so much hot water and lost his job partly over January 6 lies, he may not realize that. Fox had to settle a big case about lying about that. But I repeat, and today's testimony is a reminder, this is a convicted sedition. And I say with no hope and no prediction, but just the legal observation that if people inside that White House knew there was violence or sedition or storming of the Capitol planned, if Mike Pence knows about any of that at a high level, Well, he has an obligation under oath here to share that. Maybe he was asked about that today. We don't have the list of questions. But we do know, of course, what ultimately happened that day. It infamously was an insurrection, which violently targeted Pence as much as just about any other official. In fact, Secret Service agents, we only know from the January 6th probe, were privately calling their own family members because they feared a deadly standoff where some of them would die in protecting Mike Pence from the violence being openly advocated by those Trump fans gathered that day, some of whom have now been convicted of sedition. That's why this is serious. That's why he's a key witness. He's the only Trump White House person who has some of that direct one-on-one conversations with then President Trump about the plans. Then there's someone else, Peter Navarro. You may remember the name. He's actually the only Trump White House aide who was indicted in a January 6th related case. And he spoke publicly, including on this program, about how the coup plotters viewed Pence as their quarterback for their failed plan. Navarro here referred to him as, quote, the quarterback in the Green Bay sweep. He talked about remanding votes back to the 6 battleground states and that Pence would be the guy to help break and hijack the certification on the 6th and then use the next, 2 weeks or so to try to further seal the race. It's something Ted Cruz was in hot water for this week as well. You see, we keep learning more and more about how high these plots go. And Nicole Wallace, in our little conversation, if you caught the very top of the show, made the point that Attorney General Garland initially didn't want to overturn this rock. Only he knows why that is, but you overturn the rock and you find, disturbingly, a lot of people, some of them still in government and in power, who are in on all this. Now, that's why this matters. As for what reporters gleaned about Pence going in today, to be very clear, I'll tell you what we know and what we don't. We don't know the questions asked. We don't know the nature of this. We don't even yet have any leaks about which investigators were in the room. Sometimes we get clues on that over time. But we do know from reporters on the scene that Pence appeared to be inside for testimony from about 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. today. NBC reporting there was an increased security presence at the courthouse, multiple black SUVs with, quote, tinted windows seen entering the parking garage, 2 SUVs entering the courthouse garage around, quote, 9 a.m., an entrance that would allow witnesses to head into those grand jury rooms on the 3rd floor without being seen in any public area of the courthouse. NBC also reporting that Smith's team is interested in Trump's efforts to block the certification of the election. That's, of course, a reference to part of the list that I just shared with you, basically what was planned for the 6th. We are witnessing a legal firestorm that has not only engulfed Donald Trump, who is now also, we should remember, a criminal defendant awaiting trial in New York. This is a whole separate case. But a set of legal headaches for someone who, in a very serious manner, has the new DOJ that he no longer controls, talking to his own former vice president about what he did to try to basically prevent the peaceful and lawful transfer of power.